Good to go.
8:19, we'll call a meeting to order. We have our intention to-
Oh, we didn't have that, sorry.
That's right.
Sorry.
So, before we get started here, we just, use the opening time, Brittany and I talked and we just wanted to, recognize Cheyenne, as she transitions to her new role, so, with all the changes going on, we, Cheyenne's new role now with Trish joining will be director of, development, and, I think this is probably your, what, fourth or fifth job title since you started, but.
At least they're.
But no, we just wanted to recognize that. I mean, we've had a lot of transition lately, but recognize that because it's been a really integral piece to what we've been able to do the last 4 years. And so I think back to when we interviewed Cheyenne, and she was coming out of the private sector, so I asked her what her level of patience was for bureaucracy, and not only is she shown a lot of patience when needed, but also figured out a lot of ways to streamline what we're doing and make it as efficient as possible, even when we do have to deal with some of these extra hurdles to jump over. Just some of the things that we've accomplished with much thanks to Cheyenne's efforts and leadership has been streamlining and cleaning up of the books for both the IDA and LCDC, and really efficient, effective audit processes the last few years, helping craft the budgets that allow us to be creative and dynamic with our how we operate and how we are able to utilize external funding to help the community. Clarifying the pilot process and incentive process, make it more streamlined, understandable for our team as well as the public to utilize, and being a puzzle solver. A couple of big things in recent years have been transition of the High Falls building, which was a pretty complicated process, but we got into the hands of an entrepreneur and really being the relative framework for the community economic development fund, which we already see those funds out benefiting the community. And with that, now with this new transition to Naturally Lewis, really looking at how we move this forward and how the funding mechanisms will work to make this new organization be a more effective method of change for our community. And finally, Brittany teaching us how to tell the story and change minds through the use of numbers and data, which is always an important thing. So just want to take this time to recognize Cheyenne for what she's done, and it's been, you've had to wear a lot of hats, and we really appreciate that, and really looking forward to what this new role will look like, and also take the opportunity to welcome Trish into the team, and really hopefully in a position to be successful with how everything's been set up over the last couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Shai.
It's my pleasure. This was not my agenda.
No, it's not.
But I appreciate all the opportunity. It's been awesome.
We brought her in kicking and screaming, not quite, but with a little one, with a little trepidation, right?
I can make your cheese for
Yes, perfect.
So with that, and just officially welcoming Trish, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Trish Menthal. I am doing my best to take as many hats from Shai as possible to free her up to do to state very rural. I have a background in finance and operations and in IT. My specialty is in automating and kind of moving things into a more efficient space. And I see that Shaq has done a great job of already getting us there. I'm hoping to take us just a step further and get things running so that there's more space to help more people be of service more.
Thank you. And Jerry Hanlon, thanks to Jerry, I'm no longer the senior member of the group. Jerry was actually on IDA board several years ago and very excited to have him join. So just, you know, as a reminder, Tom stepped down at the end of last year. You know, we certainly appreciated his time on the board, but excited to have Jerry back. So just give a little background.
I had been on the board for a couple of years, back in 2011, 2012, 2013. Glad to be back. I may not have been on the board, but I've been keeping track of this crew, and they've done an amazing job. You know, all aspects under National Grid, so I'm excited to be part of that. I work for National Grid. I live about a mile that way. I live in the village, and that grandbaby number 7 on it. It's not out, so.
Yeah, Jerry is no stranger to this of serving on a lot of other committees and always wanting with all of these efforts. So with that, we'll move on. Haley sent out the meeting minutes from February because we didn't have a March meeting. If everyone had a chance to review that. So I need a motion in a second. Lindsay, all in favor? Motion carries. All right. Financial reports for February.
Right, I'm recording on January and February. Because we didn't have that March meeting. And these financials for these couple months are always really convoluted anyway, because we invoice all of our big pilots. So about $5 million worth of invoicing of pilots happens in December and January. And then those pilots are received in from the developers in January, February, and then we pay them out February, March. So we just get a couple months of really convoluted financials, which you can mostly see right there. But that line should ideally zero out, and we're close to zeroing out in these financials. So by the time we report again, that'll be passed through. Another thing I wanted to highlight on the profit and loss is under contract revenue. I don't know if we talk about it at the full order, just I guess somebody at one point. Number 3, when they paid their community economic development program HCA funding into the IDA instead of the LCDC. So the IDA showed it as received $152,250. And this is just the IDA transferring that back over to the LCDC. The other contract revenue won't come through. If you remember with the transition to Naturally Lewis and the way the fiscal years line up, the county money doesn't come into the IDA this year, so that line stays 0. The other thing to point out, and then we pointed this out before, but I'll keep highlighting it so that we remember, that's the IDA's contract for service from Naturally Lewis being paid in, and that obviously wasn't budgeted because the budget for IDA we done so long ago, and that's the end of 2023. So one payment happened in 2023, and beginning of 2024. So two fiscal years for the Naturally Lewis happened in 1 fiscal year for IDA. So we knew this budget was going to be going under the water if we transitioned the entities, and that's what we're seeing here. Payroll expenses is the only place we're saving. That's really good. But we expected this to be negative and we expect that to be negative for a couple of years. Knowing that we're using the service contract with Naturally Lewis and structuring it so that the pilot monies we've received in the past, some of that gets pushed over to Naturally Lewis to administer those pilots for the next 20-30 years. Questions on top of anyone's? The balance sheet, again, really ugly for a couple of months until the pilots all pass through. The biggest change I wanted to point out is in checking in savings, that is a real number because that's, most of that is the contract with Naturally Lewis, being paid out. Really no other notables there on the accounts receivable line, that's where you really see the pilots hitting. Questions on that? You also had the expenditures for those 2 months in your packet, because we didn't have a finance committee meeting. I won't review those in detail here, but if you had any questions. Right, we will look for a motion to approve them.
Second. Darlene, all in favor? Motion carries, thank you. And moving on to items for approval. Uniform tax exemption policy updates there.
We talked about this forever ago, huh?
Yes.
Put that in December and our meeting, this is.
Yeah, so I think the last step you guys took is we put the UTEP back out for public comment with the adaptive reuse revision.
Yeah, with the definition of adaptive reuse.
And we'll scroll down to the.
And we received no comment on the additional definition being added. Keep going with that. That's what we settled on, working with Jess to make sure it was good legalese. Nothing else changed from the last time.
So the biggest, I mean, we've seen it since then, but the biggest changes, well, they're the biggest, but probably the most outward facing or how the schedule of the payment or the tax abatement and how we split that into 2 different options for the adaptive reuse, so again, this was an effort to try to acknowledge the different needs that businesses have for pilots and how it can be the best serve them as a tool for moving a project forward.
And it helps align with our overall kind of mission to give a little more incentive to revitalization and infill instead of sprawl.
I was just talking to someone about that or a couple days ago about how like our struggle in Lewis County is people not doing anything with their buildings. And so we've never had an incentive or a tool to say, hey, if you do something with your building, here's this property tax incentive. So it's a way for us to get these property owners to do something with their buildings.
It gives us another tool, as we layer in the tool that the other entities can offer, give us the idea and the tool that's hopefully catering more to some of those smaller benefits.
So with that, we did have the first time it was sent out for public review, we did receive a few minor comments, which were presented to us back in January. And then because we decided to update that definition, we sent it back out, and if there's nothing else, we'd be ready to have a vote to adapt it as an
Quick question. We talk about construction, what about like property improvements that don't involve? How does that, is that excluded from our policy?
What kind of improvements we're talking
if there's an existing structure that is suitable, but the property itself needs improvements. Does it qualify? I'm not trying to get this, I'm just thinking about, outreach that I have.
Or it would have to come back to, again, back to what is a pilot doing, is it retaining jobs or adding jobs?
Sure.
So,
When I read construction,
As a Canvas, I read that as process of updating or renovating, so I don't see that as anything on my.
Right, if there was like an infrastructure improvement that needed to happen, they need to put like a
drainage or.
water treatment or something like that.
Mhm.
I would say, no, I mean,
It would have to be part of a bigger project, and they usually are.
Yeah, I'm probably getting too granular, I just made me think about it.
and again, I think it'd be, I guess if the business says, this is the new site we need to, sort of close them down. And that means this work, then I guess it would kind of justify his job retention, but I think it'd be kind of a stretch to.
I'm just thinking in the future, like these companies that are looking to put solar in, does they need to basically offset operating costs? That would be. We don't need to go this deep into it here, just thinking about it, because we're looking at it in the application.
I think at that point, we would pull out our project evaluation policy. And if it is a solar project, we would have to evaluate it based on the criteria in our evaluation policy.
The other
Which goes
thing,
back to jobs and community benefit and things like that.
I mean, the other thing is we still have the mechanism of deviating from the Utah. It just, requires extra steps, but there's always path for very unique situations. That opportunity is there to have the taxing jurisdictions more involved in that deviation process to really think through whether it makes sense or not.
Good question.
Anything else? If not, do we need a roll call for this? If not, we'll just take a motion to adopt the updated policy to replace the one from 2021 or something.
The motion.
Just a second, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Everybody, perfect.
This is just approving a new routine with Barclay Damon. We don't use them often, but when we do have very specific IDA questions or ABO related questions, we do go to them. So this is just a formality to formalize a retainer with Barclay Damon because their rates have gone up in the past couple of years.
The person support staff makes more than me. I know, I just saw that.
I'm saying, local services are.
That's right. Their paralegals make more per hour.
They do a pretty good job of, Melissa does a pretty good job of pushing stuff to the other attorneys for all the homework, that's not what's so.
And this is still based on as need, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions there? Motion to approve.
That's like,
It's
okay.
All in favor? Any opposed? Usually that's that. Motion carries.
Who was the second?
I, yeah.
All right, committee appointments. So just as a reminder. We have three main committees, finance. Audit, well, audit's kind of does less work, but, and, I'm trying to think. Governance, yeah, this. So, you know, we've utilized that committee structure with finance, but mainly with finance and governance to, address specific, topics and projects, and the, mostly the audit committee is, you know, is, the name is pretty obvious. But with Tom stepping down and Jerry coming in. Have a finance committee.
Jen, how do you feel about joining the finance committee?
Figuring out your chair.
Yeah, you want chair and treasurer as well? Alright.
It's a little aggressive.
Treasurer leader.
So do we have someone willing to be finance committee chair? Do someone, well,
Who's on the committee?
this guy.
It's got his, Jerry, Mackenzie.
And governance manager.
Well,
Gagan wins.
that's what you get for being sick.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the piece. Okay.
We can table that for
Yeah.
next month.
Yeah.
So, motion to appoint Jerry to the finance.
Make that motion.
Darren, second. Kenzie, all in favor? Alright. So the next one, so. For the last 3 years or so, with Cheyenne served as our secretary treasurer,
Mhm.
which was,
So hard.
yeah. So, I mean, so it was previously part of the executive committee, board members served in those roles, and then when we were streamlining things and. Through the IDA, we made that a staff member have that role. And it's worked out well, but now that Cheyenne has transitioned over to staff of Natural Lewis and no longer IDA staff. We need to have board members go back into those roles, so obviously there's a lot of support from the staff on this, with Kaylee taking notes and Trish and finance side, but just someone to review and be part of that executive.
Yeah, and again, this is just an effort to streamline how we're doing things with each board. And how we've operated it with the LCDC is. You know, there is a secretary, a treasurer, and the treasurer is basically just signing off on bank recs. Eric's secretary. Literally, yeah, signing off on this. So I did talk with Darlene about becoming secretary and reassuring her that it's literally just signing off on minutes at this point. But we still do need someone for treasurer. And we'll.
Yeah, Urban Dragon aren't here, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can, well, Gagan is vice chair. So
Right.
Joe chair, Gagan vice chair. Darlene secretary. Yes.
Does that have to be during business hours? As long as I don't, because that's the only thing I'm in during business.
The only, we would bring bank recs to board meetings for you to sign off on this. Okay, right, try, that's all we pretty much do with us.
Yeah, and yeah, with LCDC, that's how we've done it. With IDA, actually, you signed up. bank
Right.
rules. So
But
but
now-
we implement the same
yeah.
policies, then, yeah, I bring them to board meetings and. Or.
Yeah, that's.
Cause
You won't be meeting.
for layers of oversight, or we've had separate check signers, separate. Treasurer, stuff, so you know.
Okay, yeah, as long as you don't even hear about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have those other layers in place.
Yeah, again, really just a formality. It's not much work involved.
Alright, so it sounds like we have Darlene for secretary and Jessica for treasurer. We have a motion to. See this motion, Kenzie, second, Jerry. He's hammered up faster. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries, thank you.
IDA report, so as you can all see, I've restructured the IDA report to reflect our new mission statement and keyword. So we will keep track of all the updates under each of our key work areas. So we know that we're hitting those items. Some highlights for the past couple of months. Shai, do you want to discuss Deer River Wind?
Yeah, so Deer River Wind has come back to the table. For those of you who are around when the negotiations were ongoing for that, I think it stalled in 2018. But they are ready to go again, and they have a timeline of wanting to get their pilot approvals by fall. So that wind in general requires a deviation because we don't have it written into our UTEP, kind of by design. This one's kind of probably the last one we'll see unless Maple Ridge repowers, Flat Rock Wind, whatever you want to call it. But the negotiations kind of stalled at the pilot being at 8,000 per megawatt. And there's a lot of documents in there. But the taxing entities were very involved in those discussions. And that's kind of where they landed with all the kind of stipulations of what memos, there's no pilot application ever. So I made it very clear to them when they came back that we were going to need an application and a proposal from them. And let them know about LCDC's ask for an HCA. And they didn't seem to be too concerned with any of those things. So I've notified the taxing entities that they are at the table. We expect an application with a proposal. So we'll see what they're coming at, and then this board's gonna have to kind of decide is 8,000 enough, given the cost of everything has gone up. Yes, we are layering in the HCA, which brings that up to about 9,500 per megawatt if you do the math. But really exciting for those taxing entities, I think, and really exciting that they're going with the pilot. And we had a very frank conversation about why, with the assessment calculator that the state has put out why, and they confirmed, which I confirmed with number 3 wind, because Invenergy is getting out of New York State, so I had a clear conversation with their developer, now that she's not with them anymore, like, why are we still doing pilots? And they need that consistency. They don't trust the state's going to stick with the same assessment. They need to be able to sell to their investors that there's a clear investment. But I think it's moving forward, I think. And another 150,000-ish into the community economic development program each year would be incredible. Very off by but expect to see that soon. Some conversations we'll need to have, is 8,000 enough? Also, the UTEP we just approved as a flat 1%. IDA fees instead of the 1% for the first 10 million, and then stepping down to 0.75% after that. So the IDA fee is going to be significant, which would be great for all entities, and the way it will hit, it'd be just about when we were seeing a dip in IDA's revenue. So if we spread that out a couple of years, or if we choose to allow them to spread that out a couple of years, it does great things for our entities as well.
Can you remind us the taxing jurisdictions for municipalities, is it Pinckney and Harrisburg?
Pinckney, Harrisburg. Level school, Copenhagen school, Montague, yeah.
Sure.
And Barkley Game is gonna be working on that pilot, correct?
Yes.
Actually, Ross.
Oh,
Hikes and rocks for us, Barclay Dayton for them.
for that, yeah, okay, I just wanted to double check, because Barkley Game had sent me letters on some clients, and I was like, well, that's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, so there will be, I'm sure we'll have to sign up on something since we use Barclay Damon for our policy work. We'll have to sign up off on something, because if, I mean, you just remember it was, Schwartz Moses. Would be attorneys for that project before one of them retired,
Schwartz.
and it's the other one like Barclay Damon, so that's why they're there.
We Look those numbers. 8,000 in the HCA and.
This will be fun because we have the model's already there.
Right.
It's essentially number 3, when the size is very similar. The model's already there, so then the fun part will be encouraging taxing jurisdictions to play within that. And maybe not just go with the split based on tax rates, but maybe an escalator, de-escalators, schools don't fall off the cliff at the end. And just get creative within that structure.
It's great to see that, and I think. To your point, Shannon, there's a lot of opportunity there to learn from past challenges and. The de-escalator thing was a key to. Drawing a blank,
Flat Rock, so it's the same developer that owns both those projects. They're talking about recoloring Flat Rock as well, so.
Alright. Next.
Just a couple other things from the report. We were expecting some pilot applications from various projects, and unfortunately, some of those won't be coming to us, so. Like our meets, I mean, fortunately, they're still moving ahead with their project, but they won't be coming to us with a pilot because the project has already started. Armor Environmental up in Harrisville, they unfortunately pulled out of their project completely and are selling that site. They're not returning phone calls. Not really sure what the biggest, I don't know, nail in the coffin was for them, but I think it was miscommunication between the DEC and the local municipality on just site plan approval, self-permitting. Took a really long time for them to get permit approval, but by that point, they were like, we're done, we're pulling out. So they are selling the site to a new company, still need to explore that a little bit more. But Herb has been doing some local investigating for us. So unfortunately, that pilot project won't be going forward. And then the Glenfield School project, they did not receive their funding from New York State, but it's very much like a DRI application. You have to apply a couple times before they receive funding, so they are going to reapply. They're still very much they're confident that they will receive funding the second round. They're very committed to completing this project in Lewis County. It's just gonna be a 6-8 month setback. So we will still expect a pilot application from them as they're working on their second round of application to the state. So some good news with some bad news.
Ricky, do we have a purchase offer issue though on that? Do we need an addendum or something? I don't remember what the time frames were.
For the circle. Any purchase offer, that would be between them and the county.
We did it,
Yeah.
there may be an issue. I can't remember what it was, but there was a time frame for them to get their financing to the approval for the purchase offer.
Yeah,
So it may have to be with them. I mean, the town, but
yeah,
you kind of recall, I thought it was like October.
yeah, and Ryan's aware that they did not receive the funding, so. I can bring that to Ryan. Just,
It may be 2025. For some reason, 2024 long. Yeah, for some reason, I was thinking October 2024 was when they had to have financing in order to vote. Yeah, just be redundant.
yeah, yeah. Any questions?
No response from the budget office, I know that.
No, nothing. So, yeah, in correspondence, I did include Barclay David's response to the ABO, nothing, crickets. And I did share the situation with Ryan Silva, the New York State Economic Development Council, just to get him on our side as well, because he loves to fight the ABO. Yeah, they are on the case. So we'll see if they respond.
Money paid the lawyers instead of giving, instead of use we, well.
Have not been yet.
Expensive ones too.
Yeah.
And then the last piece of correspondence is, excuse me, executive session. What was it?
About the.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's public knowledge, yeah, it's filed, anyone in the public can see it.
Yeah, so I need to get served, related to the GSVP solar project on East Road, basically the general contractor just wasn't paying subcontractors. But Hodge and Russ confirmed that it's really gonna be a general contractor issue. We won't have to. We won't be involved in that.
Is that what they were? Because they were doing it backwards and forwards.
Yeah, there's been more activity out there.
That's what I saw, but I just wondered if like it was gonna come to a standstill because.
This has been kind of ongoing, been getting notices for a while that there were some issues with contractors. No, things will change it.
No, I see there's a lot.
Yeah.
So. It's really just between the landowner needs to hopefully have a good lease. That says that the pictures don't attach to the land so that they can't lien the land once they go after the contractor. But. We don't know if the lease says so. I mean, it's worth, I wouldn't have to worry. They have no interest in it, but what are they gonna do? They have no saving, so it's weird.
Do you wanna mention second place? For
Some of us beers. Shy.
They're still going. Slowly, they've been waiting on their liquor license. I'm not trying to scroll Facebook and trying to look up if they have any latest updates.
They said really nice.
They said any day, I haven't been down there, lately. Jerry, have you stuck your head in there at all?
There has been activity off and on sporadically, but not a lot.
They're there almost every day, like I drive by and they're there, I I think it's been more of just waiting game on a liquor license. So we continue to check in,
But that was granted.
Yeah, they're looks right, yeah.
right, so we expect them to be operating. I have a check-in with him this afternoon. See. But I know they want to kind of soft launch and then officially announce that they will then.
Third time's a charm, hopefully.
I wasn't official correspondence directly to the IDA, but we, the American Farmland Trust. Hosted, they're doing these statewide listening sessions in Hagen Solar, and they hosted one here last week, and then a few of us went out to the Clear Path Solar project at the Zaire Farm in New Bremen, and got a tour of how that was set up relative to working with the landowner on being able to continue to harvest hay up the land between the rows of panels. And so the American Farmland Trust folks really appreciated that tour and what was going on here, and you know, it was good to hear. You know, Clear Path has a few projects here in the county, and they're have a few others around the state that are working similarly with farmers to set up the project footprint that makes it a little more flexible. So it was a good visit and good to hear from the site manager of Clear Path and how things were working out there.
It's very interesting, because we haven't heard anything from any new storage offers in how long, Sean? Probably like at least a year. There's a lot of works. Is there?
The big ones are, I know, are still kind of moving forward,
Yeah.
at least one of them, yeah, but the communities are kind of dropped off, I mean. Mostly based on infrastructure, but.
Do you have any insight on that?
I can find out every application on file with us. Anything 5 megawatts and below comes through our shop first. Anything bigger than that goes through the archives, so first, they preview it and send it to the host utility.
Okay.
And there was an update on the, for ATL, so by. Shared with our. Scott here and. Oil rights cleaners, absolutely, so nice. I went to look at the draft minutes and they were released yet from our opportunity. You had to do with the formation of that lawsuit with Dylan.
Yeah, so his potential lawsuit, but it hasn't really gone.
Right, but there was some update that was positive and I'm like. I actually pressed Scott to see if he could. Fill me in if he does before the meeting, I will share it, but. I'll share
I didn't see anything that I thought was too promising yet.
it. Okay, I don't know why.
So Dylan was more working, Dylan Harris is an attorney that was working on potentially representing a few different municipalities against New York State. The last lawsuit he brought ended up being moved because they had changed the legislation to basically give them a lawsuit. So the last update I saw is that he was at least finding people that were well standing. He had to find an assessor, he had to find someone that had like a hydro plant or something like that. He had to find an actual individual that would be harmed by this. He was trying to find them within our county. The last update I saw was just him being more successful finding those individuals, but I haven't seen much in the budget that gave me a lot of faith yet.
Is that why we think those larger projects you're not hearing from?
No, there's people who just won't sign leases.
Because we have. I know one's in this couple weeks, but I've been reviewing leases in the last few months and people just are all refusing to sign them, so.
What's the reason for that?
The company wants too much. They want all the rights to the land, they don't wanna settle on the site plan, they don't wanna settle on the landowner having final approval of where improvements are located. So they wanna put it where they wanna put it, and they wanna give the landowner $0 for
And then they want the ability, if you're saying, to go to relocate these things.
it, yeah, at any time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bait and switch going on with. Which isn't new, it honestly isn't new, but it's been, they'll come in and say, yeah, we'll put it wherever you want on your land, and. You know, the landowner's gonna pick the back 40, so to speak, right, and then once they get excited about the amount of money that's involved and stuff, then they say, well, it'd really be better if. We moved it closer to the road, or this field actually would work better for us than the one we had talked about before. They try to get you excited and.
Crush your dreams. No, they send them to me and I crush their dreams.
I mean, it's so much that we can blame people, it's the lawyers telling them not to sign them quick.
Well, it's like, do you want these things? Cause this is what it says. Well, they told me they won't do that. I was like, I don't care what they said. This is what your contract states.
Yeah.
You go by the writing, not by whatever salesman comes around.
And it came up at the AFT input session last week too, like. People are nervous about the battery fires, even though none of these projects would have batteries, there's a lot of misconceptions about that. Even the little electrical fire in Bremen a few weeks ago, like, really not a big deal, but people are,
So something I heard after that was that the fire department didn't do anything because no one has been trained. And then since then, and I don't know if this is true, I don't look more into it, but since then I've heard that if an actual panel catches on fire. That there may be mass evacuations of homes within 5 miles.
No, but you don't know what's in them, so they also have like proprietary things that they're not sharing, so if the fire department shows up, what do they put on it? They're going on with the water,
So-
and they won't say, so obviously the fire department doesn't wanna involve themselves for further liability,
Right.
so
so.
there, I mean, obviously, anytime there's a fire, there's concerns. And there is supposed to be training from the developers with the local municipalities on this. I think it's like a lot of things, it's always one of those things that's gonna be scheduled in the next 6 months and never gets scheduled, type of thing. But there's also a ton of misconceptions, I mean, this is more toxic than the panels.
Yeah, I wish that they were more open because there are a lot of misconceptions, but it's because it's also secretive.
Right.
Why isn't there some sort of, there's no regulation on this?
Well,
Why isn't there a regulation that they have to train before they can go?
right, yeah, that's a good
Because they
question.
don't even know what they're gonna put up yet.
Right, yeah.
So I mean, I've been to a ton of meetings where they're like, oh, this is gonna be great, and at the end, you just recycle the panels. Where, what's in it? Because in Massachusetts, all of their old ones are now 25 years old, and they can't recycle what's in there because it's hazardous material. So New York State put out this is what it should cost for you to be able to recycle it, it's like $0. Doesn't count for trucking, doesn't count for uninstallation, nothing. And what if the recycling plant or the dump doesn't take it? You're putting that burden back on the landowner. That's why they always require a bond for cleanup.
They are getting better about that, most leases do not have the bonds,
Yeah.
but for the realistic, it's when they present you the lease, it should be a sale. Because they're taking all your authority, all your power, all your ownership away. So a lot of our clients were saying, look, sell property.
Yeah.
How does that differ from wind in terms of those lease agreements on those lands?
When the newer project in Copenhagen, I'm actually trying to find an attorney that will bring a class action lawsuit against that company because they refuse to release anyone's land from any of their leases. So technically, everyone who has a windmill from that last project, their entire land is still caught up in that easement. And they don't know it.
It's the whole parcel.
The whole parcel. Yeah, and then if you sell a portion of the parcel, they still won't release it, and they try to say that they're using the whole parcel to create wind.
And they're
Which is
relocating
stupid,
business.
because then I said, cool, I live upwind, I think you owe me money. Because it crosses my land first before it hits that turbine, and I don't have a lease. And then we stopped talking. So I have to, that's what I've been trying to do is find an attorney for a lot of everyone in that open year project. And there are some really big power players there, Mark's Farms, Tug Hill LLC. They're willing to put up some cash to pay an attorney to bring it. I can't. I'm willing
Was
to
it overlooked during their?
No, it clearly states in the lease that they have to work in good faith to release any unused land. But they're trying to say they're using it, but they have no payment mechanism for using that land that way within their lease. I think they're trying to hold it to do more projects and not pay people any more money.
But a lot of the people that did sign releases without going to attorneys, there is language in there that said they could relocate the easement and right of way back and forth. They are doing that.
Well, the other thing is that project's been sold, I mean, it's not
Oh, yeah.
even the same,
Nope.
it's not even the same companies.
When the companies sell like that or when they go bankrupt, does that affect the decommissioning of these?
That's the whole. That's been the whole crux of making sure it's a bonded thing, not just a. Like,
Funding an escrow
Right.
account, which the town of Peking allowed that solar company to do for the 194. They have to fund it in 15 years, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
And the more recent contracts have the bonding or people that still do attorneys have bondings, those original contracts do not.
Right. And that's been, I mean, that's been an issue going back to the original and project. I mean, it's just. People have been encouraged to use an attorney from day one and.
They did that.
Well, they don't because someone stands there and promises them the world and they trust people around.
Because the last page of it says this is where it's gonna be, it doesn't
I mean,
tell you the
even-
doctor, they relocate that.
I mean, even the guy, the representative from Clear Path last week, stated like. As long as I'm here, like. Then, I know he was on favor of, like, he was saying, like, everything needs to be in writing. Cause he said, like, I've developed this relationship with this guy. He's been trained, so he can, he's had the safety training, so he can go within panel area to harvest his hay. And so, like, as long as I'm here, he just gives me the call and lets me know what he's doing, but we made sure it's in writing. Cause if I'm not here anymore, it has to be in writing what his access is to right land and what the procedures are. And I mean, this was the I'm not saying every,
Right.
obviously a lot of developers aren't like that, that's the problem, but this was the developer stating this, he's like, they need everything in writing.
Right, well, and it has to be clear in writing,
Right.
not something that they
Not
can
vague,
change at their whim to make it more reasonable. I just don't like them, sorry. Well, it makes me mad because they take advantage of people and then people get screwed over and now they have to fork out a whole bunch of money to pay an attorney at $500 an hour probably to get their rights back to their land.
Once your land, you're gonna sell essentially.
Right, don't do it, yep. But the one in the agreement will move forward now, one of them. The last holdout is going to sign. For one of the projects.
Sort of a large one.
But I think there's great lessons to be learned there. I mean, obviously our role as IDAs dealing directly with the landowner, but in terms of community education, you would have hoped over, the last 20 years that even the most independent landowners would have, figured this out, but it's,
Did you see the promise of them?
yeah.
And that's what the companies rely on.
Do you guys see any opportunity for us as IEA to be involved in that education or?
I
What
think that
would we be doing to?
Well, I think it's more like pros and cons, like pitfalls people, have fallen into in the past, like read your contract, know what you're signing. Put in there a clause where they have to pay for your attorney. Like there are certain things you can get in those contracts and be helpful, but. It's more even almost like can't trust what the person in front of you is saying, because sometimes they've never read the contract. And they're being told also a lie. I've had someone walking, well, that's not what my person said, they said that's not in there. And I was like, well, read that sentence, and you tell me what you think that means. So it's more, it's maybe like education about like, you can't believe what people say. And you gotta read and protect yourselves.
It's buying a car, the salesman,
Mhm.
the salesman makes you feel comfortable and gets you excited, and then you go in the back room with the finance person and they. Throw all the legalese in front of you.
I think the best thing we could do, the original contracts used to say they would cover the fee.
They don't know.
Now they actually don't, but the accident, the best thing to do is say, look, to the lawyer, you can probably get your legal fees covered. And then they can negotiate.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of, not a lot, but some education.
Yeah.
5 years ago.
I was gonna say we partnered
But
with the county.
Update.
Well, and you know, I mean, I don't know what like how much confidentiality things are in these things landowners have signed, but we could get a few landowners to talk about the challenges. That would be worth
Yeah.
a whole lot more than we, because I mean, just not like.
They're confidential. They can't say anything about it. I had one person who wanted to reach out to Elise Stefanik's office and have me send a lease. Can't send it. You have an accountant, your attorneys, the state planner, financial advisor, that's it. So pretty much anything I've told you guys, you can look up in the public records.
And they're not allowed to know when each other are getting paid.
No.
So if you're coming to the same attorney who knows who else just got paid what. Oh.
Well,
We can't say anything either.
He's like, all I'm telling you, you should probably think about the value of your property, because I know it's worth twice what they're paying you right now, or offering.
What about from a municipality standpoint?
Oh my gosh, please tell them to bond. And change some of their laws, which it puts the onus on the landowner if it's abandoned. Don't you think?
And like she's saying, there's nowhere to take these. So that's why I was inquiring.
I think it has to be updated in agreement.
But the board can still leave it.
I don't
I
know,
think
certain agreements, but learning.
Yeah, I would definitely. The only way to protect yourself is to have a bond, so don't let anyone take you out of it, it's not need a bond, yeah, these companies will go bankrupt, they'll sell, some of them are foreign anyway. And then even if they're outside of New York State, you're still in New York State, and still where they are, it's just such a crazy
Yeah,
issue.
this is all stuff that just came up at our meeting Tuesday, so it's all.
I don't wanna scare anybody. And I don't like renewable energy.
yeah. No, it's been an issue for 20 years. How is that? So, what about our alright,
Yeah, if you.
this is great discussion, it's certainly we could, it might be good to, if there's. We did this meeting, it was pre-COVID, I can measure it by that time frame with county planning and this Candy Aikens were involved and. I mean, to be perfectly frank with you, getting anyone to come to a meeting in this county is depressing.
Or to be on boards for
Yeah,
town.
so, but that's why I said, I don't know what the hook is, because if we do another, the information from 5 years ago still needs to be shared and new landowners are getting approached, but. How the hell you get anyone to advocate for themselves and come educate themselves and being cynical, but it's.
As part of the, so every person on like a town board has to have training. Could we have like loop in the Tugville Commission and see if that could be something they could have approved for like a credit hour of training? And also have food, cause if I got both things, I would go to that meeting.
That's a great idea, it's still, the landowner side of it is still
Yeah.
a challenge, but.
I will add again, I know we talked about this back in 2022 or whenever it was that we did the UTEP, but is there a way, my big concern is just being overrun by windmills and solar, is there a way to make it so that you don't see solar panels everywhere you go? I mean, I think that there's place for them, and I think that there's a lot of places where they can be set back from the roads, they're not visible by homes and cars and whoever's traveling through the county, I just don't know how to make it so that. We can
And we're
enforce
saying,
that.
well, we said screening, right? A lot of towns have like screening requirements, but it's gonna be 20 years for those trees to grow, so we don't see it.
Well,
Right,
and
and in the winter, I mean, they can plant evergreens, but.
well, I mean, with all due respect to those concerns, when I put on my agriculture hat. Most everything that like zoning ordinances are doing are just making these projects less efficient. And they chew up more land, so all the setbacks, all the screening, the height requirements are all just end up chewing up more acres, making the projects less efficient, making it less likely that the landowner can do anything agriculturally with it. So that's, I mean, that, to me, that's a huge, like, you know, balancing act thing is, you know, to respect of like neighboring property owners and stuff. But on the flip side, we're already chewing up a lot of valuable land for, you know, decades, and most all of the stuff that the neighbors want makes the projects, just waste twice as many acres as they should.
I think,
Talk about that though.
I think there are, yeah, it's something that I'm looking forward to diving back into is how we evaluate the aesthetic value of the land. But also, I think there's room to build in an efficiency calculator, Joe, so that we can try to quantify. Right, you're using 500 acres for something that could be done in 400. You're not gonna get enough incentive, and yeah, that's probably gonna rule out some projects maybe. For like if our fee is high enough or per megawatt rate is high enough. But that's kind of what it's designed to do, right? It's
Could you limit like
Yeah,
what type of soil it goes?
narrow the projects down.
I mean, so our carrot and stick approach, because, right, I mean, a town can do anything, right, but most don't have the appetite because everyone's so fiercely landowners' rights.
Oh, gosh.
That most communities don't have an appetite to put in zoning that's gonna, tell the landowner. So our carrot and stick approach was, to charge them more for those prime soils. I'd still argue we're probably not charging them enough. I mean, right now, our calculator now for our pilots has not stopped a project that I'm aware of.
Right.
It, you know, it's brought in more, if they are using better soils, it's bringing in more money into the community, so, but it hasn't. And that's something, you know, a discussion this board had several years ago is, are we willing to stand in the way of a project? And the answer was yes, because there are other counties, there's towns that just see the dollar signs and they want that revenue. And so then they cave to the developer to, because.
They're gonna throw $10,000 for their community fund.
Right, yeah, type of thing. So, you know, and we have a really new group here, so it's always a dynamic discussion, but it was a stated, you know, position at the time is, yes, like, we're okay if the developer walks away from a project because of our pilot policy, because if we're not gonna, if the community's not gonna receive the benefit that we think is justified, then project, and, you know, and municipalities have not liked that we've had that stance, but again, it's never really come to that. Which to me shows how much money the developers have, because every time we push them for more, and it's quote unquote above what the going rate is and what they can afford, it hasn't stepped in.
Right, and we haven't looked at that from what we have New York State's assessment now, so no, I mean, that was kind of an arbitrary number. That was just what people are doing throughout the state, where do we fall? But that's something that you can go back now and evaluate, where does that measure up against the assessment calculation?
And it goes, to me, it shows NYSERDA in the states. Bias towards getting these projects developed, right? Because the original, well, and NYSERDA's, I mean, this is several years old now. But NYSERDA's original guidance for our territory was, per megawatt for solar was like between 3,000 and 5,100 or something. Well, so when we first implemented this policy to try to deter the use of prime farmland, we set our max at 5,500 a megawatt, $400 a megawatt. Well, what NYSERDA was saying was the affordable range in our region. No, they don't want that in that. So we raised it to 75. And meanwhile, there's lots of counties out there that have pilot policies in place at the low end at like the 3,200. And are letting projects go forward on really good demand for $3,200 a megawatt.
Right, but what are they gonna look like in 5 or 10 years if they keep?
Well, then farmers don't have land for hay. And so that's, I know at least for some of my clients, that's the biggest problem that they have is Felix, they used to be able to just go out and hay.
Yeah.
They can't,
We,
that's a loss for them, and they can't buy it at the same price they were getting the market for.
it'd be interesting to have another work session on this on the board because we have so many folks here. Cause there are, there's a, try to be, there's tons of viewpoints, right? And there's the neighbors' considerations, which are totally valid concerns. There's the agricultural side of it, and we've done, we have calculations of like what the value of that land is as agriculture versus the panels, and maybe with some new numbers with we revisit that or what on any session.
Yeah, it's a long time.
So, this is great discussion, and I don't put a kibosh to it, but we are nearing the end, so I want to make sure if there's anything else.
Is that something we should do before finalizing Utah, that we talked about?
Well, this is still our solar.
Yeah, probably in months too, items and things.
Because I think
When we get into the.
I mean, this update to our UTEP really was focused on
Right.
more traditional.
I just
Not the
it's-
renewable energy.
It's okay, keep updating that.
I think it's important for the tradition pilots that, the irony of all this is, in the time that we've been involved, like, we've done very few of the type of pilots that IDAs were originally set up to do, because it's been so dominated by energy, which wasn't the original purpose, but. So hopefully these updates are really addressing the mechanisms we have to help our local businesses that pilots were originally intended for, and not all this energy stuff, which has always been a, kind of a deviation. So is there anything else?
Quick question, was there a trigger for updating the UTEP, or is it just because it hasn't been done for years?
For the property today. I think just in our strategy or keyword towards the property redevelopments, and our UTEP really hasn't been, the original schedules hasn't been updated in many years. We just felt it was outdated.
So it's nothing saying you couldn't do it anymore.
Right, no.
Right, no, yeah, we were just seeing conflict between when projects came in, it was pretty subjective because the schedules were set up to be priority.
Targeted
Industries versus like manufacturing.
Like we were selling everything.
But targeted industries, everything's a target, yes, do business here.
But so a lot of our policies, we have but like 2-year expiration dates. To force us to revisit them. I mean, there's obviously, we can't be updating these things every month, but right, I mean, there's nothing. As needed, like if a year from now, if we see this just isn't working, or there's new, new initiatives through strategic planning and stuff that.
I mean,
need to address.
You look at financial modeling 3 years ago, it's significantly different than it is today. So I just didn't know if it was a trigger to make that happen, or just the fact that, hey, we need to do something.
It's not that much.
All right. Anything else? Good discussion today. If not, I'll take the motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Everyone's.
Everyone.